Welcome to Lumenaries, the podcast, the ultimate destination for all things lighting and production design. I'm your host, Kristof Blancquaert, and I'm thrilled to be your guide through the fascinating world of cutting-edge software and lighting design methodologies. In today's episode, we have the privilege of welcoming Kristof Blancquaert, a seasoned veteran in the live events, stage production, and lighting industry. Respected by his peers as one of the top EDM lighting designer and operators in the world. With 2 decades of hands-on experience under his belt, Kristof brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. Currently serving as production manager and lighting designer for Timmy Trumpet, Kristof is instrumental in ensuring every performance is nothing short of spectacular. Kristof's dedication to his craft extends beyond the stage as he actively shares his insights and skills through operator classes in Dubai. Having worked with esteemed acts such as Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and of course Black Wave, Kristof's portfolio speaks volumes about his professionalism and proficiency in the field. Join us as we delve into Kristof Blancquaert's remarkable journey. This is Lumenaries, the podcast, where the spotlight is on learning. Kristof Blancquaert, geez, welcome to the show, buddy. I think the last time I saw you was when we did Jamie Cullum together in Spain.
Yes, that's true. It's been a few years. It was back Corona, I think, even
It was.
with
It
the
was.
mouth masks and all that crazy stuff.
Oh my word, I forgot about that. I think I've blocked that stuff out. So thank you so much for being on the show. I think if we can start off by you maybe just telling our listeners a little bit how you got into this crazy game.
So actually, like 20 years ago, when I was still a high school student, we were with some friends. We partied a lot, but it was very expensive back in the day. So we started our own DJ team, and I was one of the DJs at the beginning also. But my interest got lost into the real DJing and not into the music. So that's when I started started into this lighting thing for events and parties that we organized, and everybody was laughing with it. Fun, hey, why you gonna do something with the lights? You can never have a career in anything. And now these days, I sometimes see those guys still, and they're all like, "Oh, we could have been more wrong because you have the craziest life ever, and we are here in our small village." So
Amazing.
actually, yeah, it was for the free beers and just for fun, actually.
That's where it started. So you didn't actually do necessarily any formal training on the job. You basically worked your way up and got yourself to where you are now
Yeah,
just by loading the truck, offloading the truck, hanging the lights, taking the lights down.
yeah, that's where I started, and then we had this thing here in Belgium. It's college thing, but back then it was the movie academy actually, and there was a lighting part in that also. So I joined that. It was a 3-year thing. It was a lot of history and all theoretical courses, and I got lost in it, and I was like, oh, fuck this shit. So I quit it with that. I started working in a regular 9 to 5 job. And during the weekends, I started working in clubs and at lighting rental companies. And just, we didn't have offline visualizers or software on the PC. You really need to get your hands on a desk somewhere.
I think in those days, I don't even think we had proper moving lights. It was the old scanners and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, the golden scans and the Mac
That's it.
500 and
Oh my
600s.
word. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's hard work to get to where you are, my friend, from starting out as a DJ. I know because I did the whole DJ thing in the beginning. But you know, if you had to think back, like what's one of your fondest memories? Which is one of the memories that really sticks in your mind for when you first maybe got a good opportunity or when you were a youngster? What sticks in your mind?
Yeah, there's always this one thing. I always worked for DJs or with our own DJ team. And then suddenly there was this thing with a cover band, a local one. And they were like, hey, come over, push some buttons. And I'm like, okay, what can go wrong? And I arrived at that gig and they didn't tell me, but it was massive. So it was with a giant matrix of bars and with the Martin matrix controller back in the days from
Oh my
RTKs and
word.
stuff. and I was like, "What the fuck is this shit?" But I pulled it through. It went good, and I liked it, and that's when it all got weird and bigger.
Jeez, the Martin case, that brings back a lot of memories. So I've obviously, been friends for a while. So I've been following your travels all over the world in lots of very interesting aircraft. Do you keep track of how many flights you do?
Yes, I do. Actually, I have an app on my iPhone for it.
Okay.
It's called the app in the air. It's
Uh-huh.
amazing because it also tells you the delays and all that stuff.
App in the air. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it can't track the private flights, so it does only the commercial ones, and it says that I was for 316 hours in an airplane last year.
316 hours. Oh my gosh, that is so much. Can you believe it?
It's still missing, I guess, 80 flights or something.
And that's with Timmy mostly that you've been flying in the private jets, right?
Yeah, so last year, most of the year was Timmy Trumpet, but I also was LD for Dimitri Vegas like Mike.
Okay.
So I already also did a lot of trips for them, and then the occasional trips to Dubai to give the trainings, updates in the clubs.
So
It's like
I'm sure you can tell some pretty wild stories about what happens in those private aircraft in between places, eh?
actually not. I'm the king of sleeping in planes.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I wanted to ask you, how many countries do you think you've worked in? Have you ever worked it out? How many countries, how many cities? I know you've just finished a big tour in South America.
Yeah, I also have an app for
Of,
that. It's
of course you
called
do.
Bean. And I've worked at this moment at 63 countries worldwide.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a big number.
Yeah, it's big, but now everything starts to get repetitive. Like it's hard to add more numbers to it. But I'm still waiting for Australia.
Do you ever get any time off to actually go and walk around and have a look at stuff?
Yes, I always try. It's such a heavy schedule that I'm doing. So last year I wasn't flying back home. I was like, oh, in 2 days I need to be at the other side of the world. So I chose my city like, oh, I've never been there. So I stayed there for 1 or 2 days and then I moved on without going home.
That's amazing.
That's what I did a lot. Like last year we visited the club owner gave us a gift like, hey, I've got a nice city trip for you guys. And then suddenly we were on the top of Mount Everest.
Wow, I saw that. That was amazing. And tell me something, was that the guys from Dubai?
No, that was a guy. They have a club in Nepal, and it was like we thought they were shitting around, like, yeah, yeah, they're making fun of us. But we were like, let's wake up and see what happens.
Wow.
And suddenly there was
Unbelievable.
a car, and there was a plane, and there was a helicopter, and
That's
it's the
amazing.
best experience ever.
If you don't follow Kristof Blancquaert, you really should go follow him on Facebook. He does some of the most interesting things and shows. But out of all the countries you've been, the places you've worked, which is your favorite country, would you say? I know it's difficult to choose one, but which is one that really sticks out? Keeping in mind you haven't been to Australia.
Yeah, that would be that's one of the most favorite to go to at the moment. I always love to go to South America because I love the food over there. We did a thing in Sicily in a huge amphitheater which had the craziest view ever in open air.
Amazing.
The bird's nest in China is also it's China. It's difficult, but it's still the bird's nest.
Yes, Olympic
So
Games venue.
it's the coolest place ever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Shah a couple of years ago when we did our training course in China, and we managed to fly to Beijing and meet him. And he's actually in his office got this golden model of it that they obviously gave him for his work at the Olympic Games. It was quite special to meet him. So I understand what you're saying. Out of all the places you've worked, which of the local crew did you enjoy working with the most?
That's also a difficult one because here the European crews are like very professional and we've got all the tools we want. We've got everything at whatever we need here in Europe. But if you go out of Europe, I think South Africa was one of the most pleasant to work with. The guys, had decent equipment, but they were like very motivated to learn, to help us further. It was a very smooth ride over there. So I think that's one of the best.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. I think that's probably got a lot to do with why 90% of all the South Africans are now living in either Dubai or Saudi Arabia, because they are popular as hard workers and committed people. And that's a wonderful thing to hear. And I'm pretty sure all the South Africans back home listening to the podcast right now are very proud of what you just said.
You don't expect it. Everybody's like, oh, Africa, Africa. But actually, like Cape Town was one of the nicest places I've ever visited.
That's awesome. That's
The
fantastic.
nature is so cool.
Yeah, it really is. I do miss it a lot. So
I can understand that.
so to jump into the more, technical bits and bobs about your career, you've done some unbelievable shows. It's shows that people would give their left arm to do. Out of all this unbelievable stuff that you've done, what is your favorite gig annually and why?
My favorite one is here, actually in Belgium. It's the Rave Rebels techno thing. It's a huge techno setup. The client gives me and the team like whatever we need. Like when we want to experiment with robots, they give us robots, or they give us a lot of motion. Whatever we want to experiment or create something special with it, they always reserve the budget for it. So I think that's the one I'm always looking out for.
Brilliant. But you know what? I've seen some of the photographs, and actually on my page, we're going to post some of the photos of some of the stuff you've done. I was always so fascinated by that gig in particular because it's just so impressive. And you can see that you guys have got carte blanche and you can actually just like creatively go completely nuts. How many people are at Grave Rebels?
I believe it's 18,000. So it's
Wow.
I think it's a 16-hour rave. Yeah, it's 16 hours. And the next edition is coming up in April, and we're already planning production for that one.
I very much look forward to seeing the photos. I'm sure it's going to be epic, as it always is.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest things.
So I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's kind of the formats of the show, trying to teach the younger people. How do you keep your skills up to date? Which formats and where do you find the information that keeps you on the cutting edge?
So I try to go a lot to trade shows because those are the places where you can meet and hook up with a lot of operators in the world or LDs. You meet everyone there, and there I most of the time spend like a few hours at the MA lighting booth to meet people, to see what their workflow is, what my workflow is. It's super funny because I started building here in Belgium. I was one of the first MA3 guys. Me and my friends, we merged our MA2 show, fell into the 3 one. And now recently I opened the MA3 on PC software, and I just opened the demo start show they have. And it's like actually our start show.
You're joking.
No,
Are,
like the
are you?
LOS system that's in there now. It's the live operating system. That one was designed by me and Cedric.
I know Cedric Endermans. I know he's also up and coming. I'm hoping to have him on the show a little bit further down the line as well. So I suppose that brings me to my next question is I know you've been working on MA3. You were one of the original guys to switch to MA3. How did you find the transition initially?
It was very difficult. And sometimes it still is because the software is currently still under huge development. They released already a lot of cool shit. But the thing that's still going a little bit wrong, and I've been talking to MA about that as well, is like the personality, like the picture profiles. The worst thing ever at the moment. In some countries, you just get the knockoff lights, like the Chinese brands, and then it's really a pain in the ass because it's not easy to write a personality in 123. All the new features they have now are just like the recipes and stuff. It's so amazing.
Do you ever use the GDTF fixture builder to create your profiles, or do you try and build them
Yes,
directly in MA3?
I do the first draft in MA3, then I export it into the GDTF builder, And then there I'll make the last adaptations, the fine tuning actually, like
Okay.
adding images, adding 3D models and stuff. But yeah, it takes a lot of time. It's not like, oh, you've got this, give me a DMX sheet and you do it in one, two, three.
No, it's not. I actually spent a bit of time over the last week building a drone. It started in GDTF and then brought it into MA3, and like you say, there's one or two things about it that I'm not happy with, but I think from some of the questions I've asked MA, there are going to be some solutions coming our way. In particular, I find working with 16 bits is becoming a bit more complicated. Yeah, I know that you do still use MA2 on occasions. Is this a preference, or is this just availability of hardware in some of the locations?
No, it's availability. I will never run a show on MA2 again if I don't need to,
Okay.
because my new start show on MA3 it's super fast. But yeah, in some countries it's very difficult to get the MA3 hardware or the system if they also have the MA3 MPUs and all that stuff. Like the board is easy to find, but the backbone, the
Mm.
PUs and stuff, that's the issue most of the time.
And I suppose it's also because of the size of the rigs that you're working on. It's always 1,000 plus whatever fixtures, and you need all the MPUs and the racks for that. So what you're saying is the boards are more available, but the actual hardware behind it, it's not.
Yeah, the local companies everywhere I go, where I see my rider, they're like, MA3, for MA2 software. No, and I'm like, no, MA3 software. Yeah, are you real? And then they ask the question like, are you really gonna do it? Because it crashes and this and that, and I'm like, it doesn't crash.
Yeah,
I will show you.
it's the
And
biggest misconception at the moment. And I recently trained a bunch of guys in Adelaide from a company called Novatech, and they are now all running MA3s, all of them, and they have not had one crash. We always start a support group for my guys so that we can help each other out, and there's been no problems whatsoever. One or two little things that MA got back to me on very quickly. So I think people are, just because of how it started, are so petrified of potentially risking a failure. I suppose at the end of the day, the cost of the units, they're not cheap.
no, they're definitely not cheap. And you can say everything about MA3. I hear a lot of bad things about it, but it's most of the time from people who never worked on MA3. It's
Mm.
like, if you actually worked on it yet? No, but this guy said this and this guy said that. And then I'm like, yeah, but then actually you should shut your mouth because you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I've been doing huge shows on this platform for like 2 years already, I guess. And I've
Mm.
never had an issue. Yes, sometimes you need to do a workaround because a feature isn't there yet, but it works. You just have to be a little bit creative sometimes.
So this kind of answers my next question, I suppose. Would you recommend that other users take the plunge into MA3?
Yes, for sure. Everybody should take a dive in it. And we also have like groups and we on WhatsApp and Facebook and we all help each other further with it. And if you get the chance, just do it. Even if it's a small show, I'm not saying you have to when your big show is coming up. Oh, I'm gonna switch. That's what I don't recommend. But for sure, the smaller gigs and build it up. Go bigger and bigger and bigger, and you will see when you've done a few shows, you will never go back again.
Absolutely. I think that's also, if you can get the training done. The training I found when I did the trainer program, I
Yeah.
straight away was okay, bye bye MA2, because MA3 is the way to go. Let's talk a bit about how you go about designing a tour. You know you're going to travel with it. Clearly, not all the venues will be as big, or will you have the same type of fixtures even? How do you plan so that you don't have to reprogram the show in each city?
On MA3, the recipe structure is the key in this story. If I have the same features, I just can expand my groups, my grid selections, and it's a done deal. And if I have to morph, I just need to update here and there the presets, the grid selection, and everything works. The effects work, everything works. Even if I have 100 lights today, 1,000 tomorrow, and 10 the day after, it will all look the same with the same timings, like it should. Yeah, if you're going to do a club tour with all different rigs, you should definitely go for the MA3. No questions asked.
So tell me, the MA Start show that we have access to within the MA3 system, is that the exact same show that you're using, or have you developed yours a bit further along the line?
We've developed it a little bit further here and there. Like we have a custom plugin that makes our grid selections from directly straight from our layouts. So we've got a little bit of tweaks here and there. But when you open it up, even the colors, the icons, they're exactly the same as we built it 2 years ago.
Is that a plugin that's commercially available now?
Yes, I will send a link to you.
Absolutely. Please do, and I'll make the link available to the listeners so that they can have a look at it.
Yeah, it's Control C. He's making a lot of plugins at the moment, and this layout to grid is one of them, and he only asks a few dollars for it. But it's
Awesome.
definitely worth it because it works super great.
That's fantastic. I know from us chatting that you have some incredibly powerful macros that you use that helps you get ready for the show. If there are no issues with the rig, how long does it take you before you show ready from walking in the door, updating presets, etc., etc.?
That was on MA2. Yes, I did have a macro that created all the sequences, all the chasers, literally everything in a few minutes. So I just need to make groups and presets. That was all I need to do. Now on MA3, yeah, I just need to update the groups because my template is already there, everything is there. The thing is, with the stuff I do, like the DJ touring, we only get like 2 hours on the rig itself. Like we've got 2 hours to make the show work. If it's
That's
100
amazing.
fixtures or 1,000. So that's not a lot of time to pull it,
It's not.
actually.
It's really
So
not.
I try to prep for an hour or two at the hotel. I always ask for a 3D studio time for like 1 hour and then 1 or 2 hours on the set, depending what's possible, and then it needs to be done.
So when you say offline studio, are you obviously with MA3, you're just using the onboard MA3 visualizer system, or do you still prefer to work with pens?
I'm a huge fan of depends and capture, and
Okay.
I juggle between those two.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
the most festivals in Europe, they have the depend system in house, and I travel currently with capture. I have depends at home in my home studio, but I don't want to carry too much laptops around because I'm running on a MacBook, and
I
yeah.
see. I see. Have you managed to write any similar macros on MA3 successfully yet?
Yeah, I've recreated literally everything I had before. I must say that you don't need a lot of those anymore. The recipe system is like super, super strong. So I could throw away already a lot, but all the things that weren't there yet, I recreated them in the first few weeks already, I guess.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
actually the same language almost. Just a few keywords that changed, but yeah, that's it.
Now, I know from having done a couple of shows with you in the past and just being good friends with you that you're not just a lighting programmer and operator and a designer, but you actually, on most occasions, take control of all the moving parts of the show, the machinery, the lasers, the effects, even the pyros. Do you have extra arms, or do you maybe want to share with the listeners why and how you possibly manage all this data?
The why is pretty simple because I love all entertainment show techniques and I was interested in every piece of them for my entire life. So whenever I got some free time, I was like, oh, I'm going to teach myself Resolum or visualization software or Pangolin for lasers or the pyro control system. So my knowledge is pretty wide. And that's also a good thing when you go on tour. When you ask for something at the house guy, like, hey, can you make me this? And then you know when they're fucking around with you because you know it from yourself. Like, yes, this can be done. And when they say, like, no, it's not possible, then I jump in and I'll just do it for myself because I have a clear vision of how the show is. And managing all those disciplines in a show, I handle it because I have a lot of automatization going on. Like on the touring shows, the lasers would run on time code, pre-recorded tracks through a show control. The effects and the pyros are just, yeah, it's just a show calling system. So, and that's how I combine everything. And then I link everything together in the MA board as well. Like on Rave Rebels, all the lights are tracked through PSN. So the motion is linked to the desk, the lasers are linked to the desk because I want to switch on lasers and lights should go off. And sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself.
I suppose from a timing point of view as well, you don't have to get everyone to be in sync. It's you.
Yeah.
So when you hit the button, it's going to do everything at the right time for you.
That's actually the most important thing. Most of the time, you're the only guy who knows the music, who knows what's going to happen. And it's a lot of data to handle into your head, and it's a lot of stress most of the times. But the effect is just the best, actually. I'm not saying to everybody, like, hey, cut down everyone, but or you create a big team that goes on tour. But in some countries, you can't take any chances. Like
Yeah.
in Asia, you can't just say like, "Oh, I'll cue the laser dude," because you will see rainbows from beginning till the end.
That is so true. I know, having worked in Asia, it's not easy, but in particular China, because of the language barrier, it's very difficult to get the information across.
That's the big point. And in South America, it's the same. So in those countries where I know the language barrier is gonna be an issue, I try to grab most of the controls. But when I'm pretty sure that everything will work out, then I'll just leave it to the guys who are on site. But I'm also a licensed pyro guy, a licensed laser operator. So that's what saves me a lot in the strange countries.
I also know you like to develop your own machinery, like robots and all kinds of insanely cool stuff. And I know this ties back to the Rave Rebels giving you guys a blank check, if you want to say that. But what drives your constant innovation?
The biggest thing is actually that I want to develop myself into like the lighting art installation industry because that's like a big passion of mine. And I'm just experimenting with all these different techniques and disciplines and linking robots with laser heads on top of them or video projectors or make the robots interactive with videos mappings on buildings. And that's the thing we're actually experimenting with at Rave Rebels to actually put it on light festivals in the next 2 years. Like we've done some tests with pyro drones and all that shit, which went a little bit wrong because of license. Not with the pyro drone itself, that went perfect, but with licensing and permits, everybody was scared of it. Nowadays in Dubai, everybody's doing it, but that's a little project that got lost a little bit. But that's actually the main concept, like combining all these technologies that nobody expects and then entertain people with it, like entertain families, people who are not familiar with event industry even. Make interactive installations. That's the big goal for when I'm old.
Isn't that what's beautiful about our industry is it's capturing someone's imagination, and like you say, even if it's a young child at a museum or it's a person on the dance floor, looking at just being overwhelmed by the emotion of the art of what it is we do.
Yeah, to bring them in another world, I guess. That's the thing. We are now planning on a concept phase on installation. And it's like when we used to go down to museums back in the days on school, it was, oh, look, a painting. Yeah, which is very cool because what they did back in the days was amazing. But now, with all this digital art you can do and all those special things connected to each other, and I think that's just fun.
That sounds amazing. I know that you are obviously well versed in all the different types of tech. What would you say is your current weapon of choice? Is there any specific light or software or hardware that you really think is at the cutting edge?
For lights, when I do the outdoor shows, I'm a huge fan of the Ayrton range because they're all IP, the power, the gobos. It's fucking crazy actually. They are more expensive, but that what they have been doing throughout the years with they started with the magic blades and all that shit. It's just crazy. And for indoor, yeah, we do have a lot of Roby here in Europe, actually all over the world, which you can get in large amounts. So those are my favorites. For desks, of course, it's the MA lighting range. For the special projects, we use like Stage Precision. They use some Eurovision as well. It's a very customizable tool, which is also very expensive, but that's the tool we use for the robots connecting to the Grand Maze. I choose the equipment what I need on that gig, especially like today I might need dominoes or cobras, but tomorrow it might be a mega point or something else. I'm not married with a manufacturer or with a light. I just see what gives the best purpose for what it needs to do.
I know that you work in lots of different industries and I know you've done a lot of stuff in TV, but this episode in particular, I wanted to focus on your EDM successes. But what would you say is your dirty little secret to being so unbelievably popular in the EDM scene?
30 little secrets. I've got a good timing musically. Like I can feel the music. I know when I never heard a DJ play before, it's like I know what he's going to do without even ever hearing any of the songs. I can't explain it actually, and everybody is amazed with it. Like we did a show with trumpets 2 weeks ago in Japan, and they literally made a new track 30 minutes before show.
Wow.
And they played the track in the set, and I hit every accent, every little thing on that track. And he's like, "How the fuck did you do that? You never heard this thing." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, bro. I can't explain. It's crazy."
Do you think
And
it's
the
maybe
other,
because you started as a DJ that you actually have that natural timing of matching beats and knowing when to drop on the break?
yeah, maybe it was something that needed to grow. Like I know in the beginning I didn't have it. I had it a little bit, but during the last 10 years, it's got into crazy proportions actually. When you hear the new tracks, EDM music is also like a structural music thing. It's always the same, and sometimes there are some crazy DJs who do crazy edits with fake drops and all that shit. But even then, you can manage to feel it coming. Yeah,
It's a
it's yeah,
feeling.
it's
It's
a
a feeling.
feeling. It's just a feeling
Awesome.
that you need to learn, and you need to learn your artist, what he likes, and then you can already predict the future a little bit. Like if you know he's gonna remix something, and you know like, hey, these are the types of kicks he likes or synths he likes, then you can already make the song in your head because you know what he will be doing.
Perfect.
And
So I suppose the previous question ties in quite well with the answer you've just given. And a lot of your success is owed to your personal relationships that you've built over the years with the creatives, promoters, artists. I know you're currently jetting all over with Timmy Trumpet, who's Australian, by the way, and I can't believe he hasn't come back home to do a show with us down here. I can't wait for that. But do you have any favorite artists or DJ that really, really rock your boat? Like something that you just get so excited about?
there are a few. I loved working with rock bands like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. That was really fun. For DJs, I also loved working with. I love working more with the like the less known artists, less known DJs, because it's easier to work together with them because they're new in the scene. They also want to do the big show. They want to discover what's possible. So you got more creative freedom. with the artist. So that's
So,
actually the most fun.
so they're more approachable. They're more keen to work with
Yeah,
you as opposed to being too fancy to, talk to the tech
yeah,
crew. If you will, I got that. That
yeah.
makes sense.
It's always more fun to grow with an artist than to enter the team when artist is already big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
To try and
there are
make your mark.
still yeah, there are still a few gigs on my bucket list item, but we'll see if that ever happens.
Well, we're watching this space. What is your approach to dealing with tough customers? How do you balance what's possible with their expectations?
That's actually a very difficult one because it's always the battle that's always all over the world. Like it's always budget versus expectations. That's always the big deal, maker or breaker. On some projects where we have like, let's say, the blank check, like on the Rave Rebels, everything needs to work because they are giving so much production time, so much testing time, and then it just needs to work. And it speaks into long working hours to get it done most of the time. It gets really difficult when you're cut to a tight budget and the client is expecting the world to move. Then I'll try to explain like, hey guys, if you want to do this, that's the time we need. If you want to do that, that's the time we need beforehand even. Like that's what we also do with Core and Tomorrowland and with all those other big shows.
So you actually manage expectations up front to
Yeah.
try and avoid having situations when you're actually in production.
Yeah, you always sometimes situations occur during production, but I always try to avoid them booking pre-visualization time in it. Like the client can see a little bit of rendering, like how it looks. And if he's like, not what I expected, then you can still make changes to the design, to the programming. But when you're on site a day before show, you're tight. You can't do a lot anymore. Like you're
You
fucked
but
actually.
what it is, it's what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So I know we spoke earlier about what your dirty secret is, and you mentioned timing. I'd like to ask, how would you explain your approach to programming for music is? I know that mostly you 100% busking live for these events because you have to feel the music. But if anybody saw that, they wouldn't be able to tell. And in my opinion, it always looks like it's time coded. But what would you say is your secret if you were to share some tricks with listeners, with the younger guys? How should they structure their show to program specifically for music?
Yeah, like every music genre got its special, got a different programming approach with me. For this EDM thing, everything is like I split everything up. Like I have like a fader for each group of lights that just as a dimmer. I have this live operating system, which you can now see in the Grand MA demo start show, which is very highly flexible. And I always have like the buttons on the sides to build up with a slow effect, another one with fast effects, with strobing effects. So you can always go build up and build up and build up and build up until that drop comes. And I think that's actually the key of it. Like I can make 1,000 combinations out of my start show on the spot. And I'm not tight when I go to France and for instance, there are more countries that do that, but France comes up into my mind because I've been doing a club there. And they had like one fader with all parameters in it. Like this is for the build up. This is for the break. This is and for the drop. But it always looks the same because they just
Yeah.
were so limited to their choices. And the system that I use and that MA is recommending now, that's just highly flexible and you can just change and combine and yeah, create cool shit on the spot while you're actually doing it. I'm not fixed to fixed programmation thing, like that fader does this. Everything is flexible in my show file.
So how do you keep your tempo? Is it tap tempo? Are you tapping the tempo into the console, or are you using the audio inputs to keep the structure, to keep the effects in time?
I never use the audio inputs. I even wouldn't know how it works. We have the show control system inside the front of house, but that's then just if we automate the lasers or show call pyro on it. I even never watch on that screen actually. But it's always I tap the tempo or it's just all manual bumps.
Okay, so it's manual
Just
bumps. So you
yeah,
do so
it's like
when you're doing a strobe, for example, is it a chase effect? I know they're phases now, but I'm using old terminology. Is it the phaser? Are you using the actual shutter of the fixture, or are you using a chase that is making the beam flash, I suppose, at the tempo
yeah.
of the song?
It depends on the fixture again. Some fixtures handle the shutters pretty well. Some other you need to create on dimmers. So that's always a little thing I need to search. But I have like I call them the stopper buttons. Like it's just individual timing. Like when I hit it, all lights go from left to right, or right to left, or inside out, or out to in. They got like fixed timings on those. And with EDM, if you switch it to 0.4 seconds in and 0.4 seconds out, like 0.8, then you have a good bass tempo for those stoppers and droppers things. And I have a lot of those buttons with also a little bit of a rate master on it, so I can speed them up if BPMs go higher or slow them down if BPMs go less. So I use those buttons a lot with fixed timings, individual timings and individual effects, like single shot actually, like just press it, it goes in the perfect timing, and then I'll just manually bump again with other buttons that do a chase strobe or a dimmer or a color chase.
Share with us, what is one of your biggest highlights in your career, the biggest thrill of your incredible journey?
There were so many. Let's pick two out of them. I must say the TV show we did in the bird's nest in China, that literally was the biggest thing I ever did, because it was huge and it's already I think 6 or 7 years ago. So that is still, when I see those pictures, I'm still like, wow, how did I pull that one off? And then there was another thing which I actually didn't know a lot about, but just went in, and it was like the expo in Milan. You might know that gig, the Tree of Life, was with a Belgian designer. And I even didn't know what I was walking into, and suddenly there were like hundreds of water fountains with lights and lasers and moving heads, and everything was on the MA. And I needed to update all the shows because they were going to reopen it for another exposition or something. But the result was so cool, and I've never done something like that again, and I'm still waiting for another one like that actually, with
Awesome.
fountains and lights and with all disciplines all perfectly scripted.
So you also, like myself, definitely not a busker. I used to be a DJ, and I can also flash a bit if I need to, but my passion's always been time coding and getting it to be absolutely perfect. And I suppose you've just given me two good examples of different types of shows that one would be technically perfect and the other would be being able to listen to the music and interpret what a DJ does live. And that's what makes you so talented, I suppose, at the end of the day.
Yeah, you learn a lot from that, and yeah, it's just fun. I also love to do the time code things. I was always like, the time code shows, everybody who can program a lighting desk can make a time code show, because even a monkey could do it. If a monkey can knows how to program an MA, he can do it.
So you say you enjoy time code. If you had to choose between doing it live or having to time code, do you have a preference?
Yes, I always choose live. I even got a few clients of me that are standing next to my desk. There are some videos of shows of mine that are online, on YouTube, and then a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's not live. The DJ is playing a mix, and everything is time coded. Look, the lights are perfectly synced. It's impossible." And then I used to respond like, "No, it's not." And then they're like, "How do you know?" And I'm like, I was a guy doing it.
I love that.
So I always prefer live. Also like time code, because in time code you can always go next level. You can do a little bit more, but it also takes a lot of more time.
Maybe you can also share with us some of those links, Kristof, of the stuff that you're proud of, and I can actually put it on my website
Yeah,
underneath
sure.
with your photographs, which so that the listeners can see some of the stuff you're talking about. Now, for something personal. Being away from Belgium as much, how do you maintain your personal relationships? Is there a potential Mrs. Blancquaert waiting back home, or have you got a family established on each continent?
We've got a we've got a family on each continent, I guess. When I'm home, I always try to visit all my friends or see the best friends, and I keep contact with, I think, at least 5 or 6 of them in Belgium all the time. Yeah, since I'm actually never in Belgium, except for now, I guess a few weeks now. I've always, yeah, I learned to know a lot of people around the planet. So everywhere we go now, you always meet someone or have new friends over there, and it's a special situation.
That's
Let's call
awesome.
it like that.
It is a global family, I suppose, that you're part of.
Yeah, and the touring team, it's always the same. Like, we are just now with Timmy Trumpet, it's a small team. We are just with 5 persons. Timmy and Mike, we were with 8, I believe. The other shows I did, like when we do the core shows, yeah, it's a huge team, but it's always the same people that you're on the road with, and that's what makes it fun. Yeah, I know those guys as good as I know my family or my best friends that I've known my entire life here.
That's amazing. Taking equipment failure out of the equation, have you ever made a mistake on a gig that's really got you into trouble? And how did you deal with the repercussions that came after that? Now, I'm not talking about missing a beat or something. I'm talking about proper mistake.
Proper fucking up.
Yep.
Now I have to think, actually.
There's always that one experience that jumps to mind where you were like so embarrassed. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
I once put the Pepsi colors on a Coca-Cola
Ah.
Congress in the house.
That will do it.
That was, but it was without a thought. It was like, it was there. Like, I made all the scenes in red and blue, because the blue for the house lights, I thought it's cool for a convention setting, and then spots in red. Yeah, it always works. And then the thing started, and it was like, yeah, a mess that that came up, because yeah, the guys came and it was like, "Hey, this is not Pepsi," and I'm like, "Fuck."
That's very funny. That's very, very funny.
Maybe that's one of the things. Yeah, the drone story. It's also a special story that keeps following me, because I was on the right track with that, but we ran out of time. We invested a shitload of money, and now it's nowhere because the supplier fucked us over.
Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit on the drone story you're talking about.
With the drones, we want to make them also interactive. Like, the first phase was just flying informations, what everybody's been doing the last years. The second phase was that I would launch fireworks up in the sky, which we also managed to do. And the third phase was like actually that robots from the ground with lasers on them could track the drone fleet. So they would follow and shoot laser beams at the drones, and then the fireworks should ignite and all that shit. But we got into a lot of technical issues, and we invested a lot of money in it. And the deadline was getting closer and closer and closer for that project. And we needed to blow it off like three weeks before the project was supposed to launch, after an investment of like thousands of euros. And now the project is nothing, and that client, who is still a big client of mine on other disciplines, he's still laughing with it, like, that didn't work out, that didn't work out. And I'm like, no, it didn't. And I'm still stressed out about that part. That was the one big failure that actually never happened before. And he's laughing with it, like, hey, you didn't pull that one off. And I'm like, yeah, but if you don't shoot, you will always miss the target.
I have no doubt that you're still going to go back to that and you're still going to go and fix that problem and make that happen.
Yeah, but at this moment, the competition is starting to do the same. So we are now already looking for bringing it next level and taking a bit more time to get that technology up and running. That's the thing we all, yeah, maybe miscalculated last time. Like, we thought we were going to pull it off in 8 months, while we actually needed 20 months.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the show, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us and sharing with the listeners all your experience. And I have one last question that I want to ask you before we end today's episode. If you had to give advice to somebody who's starting in our industry or somebody who's keen and wants to get into this game, what would you say to them?
I meet a lot of people who literally ask it to me, and they're all like, hey, hire me, hire me. And I'm like, everybody should find his own path in the industry, because everybody wants to do something else. You can't copy. The best things you can do is stay learning. Look around what other geeks are doing, what technologies show up. Feel free to ask questions on Facebook groups or on WhatsApp or on trade shows. Never think that you know it all, because you can always learn something. It might be the stupidest thing ever, but you can always learn something. And just stay friendly, stay yourself. Not be an asshole, or not pull shit off with other operators, like steal their jobs or work for a lower fee and steal the job. Just take the long road. If you're talented and willing to do it, you will get there. But if you take the short road with fucking up other people, and then you're just in for the short run, because you will get a reputation, and it's such a small industry. Everybody knows everybody. Yeah, stay friendly, try to learn. If you have free time, contact with a guy on Facebook. Like, if you see, oh, that guy is in town with the show, try to contact them. If you can see, even doing sound check or doing programming, how does he do it? And learn from that.
So
I think
build a network, stay humble, and never stop learning.
Yeah, I think that's the key to get it. This industry, I've learned that when you want to go into the touring part, it's like 40% skill that you need, but you definitely need 60% of people management. If you're an asshole, you will disappear within a few years or months even. And if you're nice and your skills are not top notch, but you're good, they will hire you. But if you're the best programmer or operator, but you're a fucking asshole, nobody will call you. And that's what everybody should remember.
That's
It's a
awesome.
people game.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Kristof Blancquaert, thank you for joining us on Lumenaries, the podcast. I wish you the best of luck, and we will definitely keep following you and watching your beautiful journey. And please look on the links below to see some of Kristof's work and have a look at some of his photos. And if you have any questions, be sure to send them to me and I'll forward them to Kristof. Thank you, Kristof.
Hey, thanks, Gustavo. Speak to you soon, man.
Speak to you soon, brother.